So here I am, sitting somewhere on the Atlantic coast, the shore, all the way up to Maine and as far south as the Yucatan Peninsula is pulsating with activity. The horseshoes are laying eggs by the millions. One stretch of the horizon over here has the guttural whisper of thunder on its breath. But if I turn and face this direction, the air is saturated with the calls of thousands of birds. Thousands. The majority of these birds are migratory species, stopping here to feast upon the eggs of the horseshoe crabs and double their weight before they make their long journey northward to the Arctic regions. With all the commotion, it's easy to lose yourself and to be whisked up and lost to the drama of life and death orchestrated by the symphony of birds and the percussing waves. This is a play that has taken center stage every spring for millions of years. But there's another performance going on less than a mile from the ocean, and this has taken place for equally as long. Perhaps not as dramatic, but definitely hustling and bustling with a frantic and determined show of hands. In the world of salt marshes, the fiddler crabs keep the wheels spinning.
Nature here and now.
Fiddler crabs are generally found in salt marshes, intertidal beaches and streams, and brackish wetlands not far from the coast. Fiddler crabs, also known as calling crabs, are semi-terrestrial crabs belonging to the family Ocipodidae. There are over 100 species, but in the US, as far as I know, there are around 13 species, and in the northeastern states, there's 3 or 4 species. You've got the red-jointed fiddlers, the Atlantic sand fiddlers, and the Atlantic marsh or mud fiddlers. Most fiddler crabs tend to be modest in size. Their carapace, or shell, rarely exceeds more than 2 inches across. And cool fact, this carapace will be dark during daytime hours, but it becomes lighter in color during the evening hours. Fiddler crabs are a perfect example of sexual dimorphism, and it is this dimorphism that they get their name from. The males brandish extreme claw asymmetry. That is, they have one minor claw and one significantly larger claw that is used for male-to-male dispute cases, and of course, most importantly, impressing the females. And that's because this major claw is the product of much foraging and feeding. On the other hand, no pun intended, the females, of course, are adorned with 2 normal-sized claws. The females also tend to be more colorful than the males, such as this individual here. Notice her color in the 2 claws of similar size. And actually, come to think of it, both males and females tend to be more fond of individuals sporting brighter colors. Go figure. Fiddler crabs are always doing something. If they aren't eating, they're building and maintaining. They are constantly building burrows, usually in the mud or sand, and these burrows can be 1 to 2 feet deep and as wide as the sideways individual who owns it. And fiddlers construct 2 different types of burrows. Both males and females will build temporary burrows during high tides to avoid predators, and they also build breeding burrows in which the males are the sole architects. Also, the burrows are often topped with a ring or chimney of mud balls that they later on use to construct doors during high tide. This sticky, chewy stuff here is known as pluff mud. And it is characteristic of salt marshes, intertidal streams, and habitats such as this one you see right here. But it is also the building material that the fiddler crabs use for their homes. clough mud is filled with decaying plants and nutrients, but as you can imagine, it's rather dense in the way that it compresses and expands throughout the year. These crab tunnels allow channels of air to reach down into the mud and reach the roots of plants. Not only that, but as these crabs are maintaining their homes, if you will, they are scooping up nutrient-rich mud and bringing it up towards the surface. Thanks largely to the fiddler crabs, this constant circulation of oxygen and nutrients helps ensure that the key ingredients essential for life are continuously moving. If they aren't building, they're posturing and waving. They wave their claws rhythmically to attract females and, of course, to warn other males that a particular piece of real estate is claimed. I have noticed a fair amount of bobbing up and down and drumming. This drumming is sometimes a bit of a love song to attract females, and this music sends vibrations along the ground that can aid in locating when sight is hindered or blocked. But they have more than one song in this playlist. There is also drumming that warns other males not to press their luck and to keep their distance. All this drumming could be more revealing than visual representation because it really demonstrates fitness level, size, and can also relay other information that, in the interest of time, goes beyond the scope of this video. Broadcast waving is pretty entertaining. It is slower and the claws are held up higher, pretty much to catch attention. Fun fact, this broadcast waving actually also helps to dissipate heat, which has to be high in this dark mud. I'm telling you, I am sweating buckets. Not to mention the 10 billion sand midges that are eating me alive. I'm telling you, the things we do for videos. Male-male disputes and territorial disputes can be settled in numerous ways, but the two most common ways are: one, posturing. Just posturing alone can relay a lot of information and dissipate a dispute. But if that doesn't work, it gets physical. Should that happen, it's actually kind of cool because it's not quite as violent as one might think. It's almost like, I don't know, a handshake in a way. They basically lock claws, the two major claws that is, and rotate them from side to side, kind of like a secret handshake. That's usually all it takes for them to determine who is the superior one and who's inferior. And then they just kind of let it go at that. Kind of settled with a handshake, if you will. Every once in a while, it'll get a bit more aggressive with some pushing and shoving, and I swear at one point, I think I saw a crab toss another crab. Not surprisingly, fiddler crabs can also possess more than one burrow. I mean, it's kind of useful to have a couple of burrows nearby to retreat should a predator show up, but you definitely want to have a burrow for mating. The females are pretty much attracted to the bigger burrows, in some cases more so than they are to crabs with bigger claws, although it goes hand in hand. Again, no pun intended. The whole point of that being it can hold more eggs and she can go through her gestation period in comfort. Now, something I find really interesting about fiddler crabs is, should a crab lose its major claw, the minor claw will start to enlarge and grow in size, and that'll become the major claw. By the next molt, the original claw that was lost will just be replaced and become a minor claw. This process can actually go back and forth several times in the crab's lifespan. I used to wonder why not all fiddler crabs have the major claw on the same side. Well, there you go. The way fiddler crabs move is so entertaining, I can't help but to be captivated. I mean, these things are running about their busy, most important lives completely sideways, darting from here and there as if it's the most important thing in the world and time is running short. Now, I have to admit, I'm really fond of fiddler crabs, but what is it exactly about them that I love so much? I don't know. but those eye stalks definitely win me over. These things easily swivel up and down, so that they can squeeze into those burrows and sway those stalks from side to side. They're actually extremely impressive feats of evolution, if I might say so myself. See, the thing is, those stalks are topped with 360-degree compound eyes. These eyes see in 360 degrees. Imagine that. What does that look like in the mind of a crab? Is it like some kind of crazy wavy panoramic, or what I think it is just a sphere where you've got the horizon going all the way around the circumference, and I guess the noonday sun at its zenith would be in the middle of this field of vision? I don't know. They can also detect ultraviolet wavelength, green wavelengths, and possibly a third wavelength. The diet of fiddler crabs consists mostly of algae, bacteria, fungi, and dead and decaying plant and animal matter. You see, they just scoop up little spheres of mud, and then with little appendages in front of the mouth, they filter out the organic particles and shove them into the mouth. And it's always funny to watch them eat because boy do they eat. Those little hands are just constantly scooping food up and going back and forth. As you may have guessed, when it comes to feeding, male fiddler crabs are a little bit hindered with that giant claw. It's pretty much useless when it comes to feeding. Bonus points when they start blowing bubbles. I'm sorry, but I always get a kick out of that. Speaking of diets, fiddler crabs definitely have a fair share of predators out there. They gotta watch out for all sorts of birds, especially herons. There's plenty of fish that like to feed on them. You got various mammals such as raccoons roaming about the marshes and shores. Sometimes other crabs will feed on them. And even reptiles such as snapping turtles. Now, during the colder months, fiddler crabs will pretty much go into a dormant stage. They just plug up their burrows and sleep it away. I gotta tell you, filming these fiddler crabs and narrating this video at the same time is a bit challenging. I couldn't help but to smile, and when I did, about 300 crabs darted into their burrows. Unlike horseshoe crabs or lobsters, fiddler crabs have relatively short lifespans. I mean, they generally live 1 to 3 years. And it takes 1 or 2 years for them to reach sexual maturity. That basically means that they generally have 1 year to replenish the population. Surprisingly, with such a narrow window for increasing their population, fiddler crabs tend to be one of the most dominant life forms in salt marshes. Just 1 acre of marshland can be populated with as many as 1 million to 8 million fiddler crabs of all ages. Considering that all these fiddler crabs need burrows of their own, the landscape becomes saturated with tunnels and caverns. Not only does the size of a male and his enlarged claw demonstrate how tough he is and how good he is at obtaining food, but it also indicates to the female that his burrow is going to have enough room for her eggs. Unlike horseshoe crabs, you don't usually get to see fiddler crabs in the process of mating, and that's because it usually takes place in the safety of the burrow. Female fiddler crabs can lay as many as 2,000 eggs. After the eggs are fertilized, gestation will take about 2 weeks, and during that time the female will stay in her burrow, usually close to the water's edge. When the time is right, she'll go to the receding tide line and deposit those eggs. The eggs will hatch into tiny, free-swimming larvae. When I say tiny, these things are small. Some of them will be the size of a pinhead. These crabs will go to any port in a storm, meaning that if danger's close, they'll dive into whatever burrow is closest. I'm telling you, I love fiddler crabs. I mean, not only are they one of my favorite animals of this region, but they play a vital role in the ecosystem, and I find them to be super fascinating and very entertaining to watch. You hear that? That is a clapper rail. It's a bird about this big. They look delicious. Anyway, speaking of watching, if you watch a video this far, why not show your love and support by hitting that like button? And if you haven't already, definitely hit that subscribe button too, because it tells the algorithm that people like my content, and it helps me to be able to get out to environments such as this one and produce videos like the one you just watched. Anyways, thanks a lot for watching. Once again, I'm Chris Egnoto, and I'll see you somewhere else.